Imagine being alone in a dark, dangerous jungle, miles from help, with the deadliest snake in the world, a black mamba, just bitten you. That's exactly what happened to me. One moment, I was hiking, enjoying nature's beauty. The next, I was fighting for my life, my leg burning with venom, my heart racing with fear. Could I survive the pain, the isolation, and the terror? In this gripping, emotional story, alone in the jungle after a black mamba bite, my fight to stay alive and find help. I'll take you through my desperate struggle, the moments of hope, and the miracle that saved me. It's a tale of courage, survival, and the will to live against all odds. If you love suspenseful, heart-pounding stories, you'll be on the edge of your seat until the very end. Don't forget to like this video, and subscribe to my channel for more incredible stories like this. Hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support keeps these adventures coming. It was a beautiful morning when I decided to go for a hike in the jungle. The sun was just rising, casting golden light through the tall trees, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers and damp earth. I had always loved nature. Growing up, I'd spent hours exploring forests and fields near my home, listening to the birds sing and watching small animals scurry about. This jungle, though, was different. It was wilder, denser, and more mysterious. I felt a thrill of excitement as I packed a small bag with water, some snacks, and a flashlight. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I thought I'd be back by evening. Little did I know that this day would change my life forever. The jungle was alive with sounds. Birds chirped loudly, monkeys chattered in the distance, and the leaves rustled as a gentle breeze passed through. I walked along a narrow path, my boots crunching on fallen leaves and twigs. The trail was quiet, peaceful, and I felt at ease. I'd read about the dangers of jungles, wild animals, poisonous plants, and snakes, but I wasn't worried. I was careful, I told myself. I'd hiked before, and nothing bad had ever happened. I stopped for a moment to take a picture of a colorful bird perched on a branch, its feathers glowing in the sunlight. Life felt perfect. But then everything changed in an instant. I was walking through a particularly thick part of the jungle, where the trees blocked out most of the sunlight, and the air felt heavy and humid. I was focused on stepping over a fallen log when I felt it, a sharp, burning pain in my right leg, just above my ankle. It was like someone had stabbed me with a hot knife. I yelped and jumped back, my heart pounding. At first I thought it was a thorn or a branch, but when I looked down I saw something far worse. There, slithering quickly into the underbrush, was a long, sleek black snake. Its scales glistened in the dim light, and its movements were fast and terrifying. My stomach dropped. It was a black mamba. I froze, my mind racing. I'd heard stories about black mambas. They were one of the deadliest snakes in the world, known for their speed, aggression, and venom that could kill a person in just a few hours. My legs wobbled, and I felt a wave of nausea hit me. The pain in my leg was getting worse, spreading like fire up my calf. I could see 2 small puncture marks where the snake had bitten me, and already, the skin around them was turning red and swelling. Panic set in. What was I supposed to do? I was alone, miles away from any village or road, with no phone signal and no one to help me. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. I might die here. I forced myself to breathe, trying to remember what I'd read about snake bites. Stay calm, don't panic, and get help as fast as possible. That's what the article said. But how could I stay calm when every second felt like it could be my last? My hands shook as I dropped my bag and rummaged through it, hoping to find something useful. There was no first aid kit, no anti-venom, nothing but a bottle of water and a flashlight. I cursed myself for being so careless. Why hadn't I told someone where I was going? Why hadn't I prepared better? Tears stung my eyes, but I wiped them away. Crying wouldn't save me. I had to act. I looked around, hoping to see some sign of life, a path, a river, anything. But all I saw were trees, vines, and shadows. The jungle seemed to close in around me, the sounds of nature now feeling ominous instead of peaceful. A bird screeched nearby, and I jumped, my nerves on edge. Every rustle of leaves made me think the snake was coming back, or worse, that there were more dangers waiting for me. I knew black mambas were solitary, but what if there were other snakes, or predators like jaguars? The thought made my blood run cold. The pain in my leg was becoming unbearable. It felt like my entire leg was on fire, and my head started to spin. I sat down on the log, trying to catch my breath, but my chest felt tight, and my vision blurred for a moment. Was the venom already affecting me? I remembered reading that black mamba venom could cause paralysis, difficulty breathing, and even heart failure. My hands trembled as I touched the bite mark, and I winced at the tenderness. The swelling was getting worse, and I could feel my body slowing down, like it was giving up. But I couldn't give up. I had to fight. I tore a strip from the bottom of my shirt, my fingers fumbling with the fabric. With shaking hands I tied it tightly above the bite, hoping to slow the spread of the venom. It wasn't much, but it was something. I stood up wincing as pain shot through my leg, and looked around again. There had to be a way out. I couldn't just sit there and wait to die. I thought of my family, my parents, my siblings, my friends. They were waiting for me back home, expecting me to return with stories of my adventure. I couldn't let them down. I couldn't let myself down. With a deep breath, I started to move, limping through the jungle. Every step was agony, but I forced myself to keep going. The trees seemed to mock me, their branches reaching out like hands trying to hold me back. The sounds of the jungle grew louder, monkeys howling, insects buzzing, leaves crunching under my feet. I was alone, completely alone, with only my fear and determination to keep me company. I didn't know if I'd make it out alive, but I knew I had to try. The black mamba had attacked me, but I refused to let it win. This was my fight now, and I would do everything I could to survive. As I stumbled forward, the weight of my situation pressed down on me. The jungle was vast, and I was just one person, injured and terrified. But somewhere deep inside, a spark of hope flickered. Maybe, just maybe, I could find help. Maybe I could make it. With that thought, I pushed on, unaware of the long, terrifying journey that lay ahead. The pain in my leg was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. It wasn't just a sting or a throb, it was a raging fire that seemed to spread through my entire body with every passing second. After the black mamba bite, I had tied a strip of my shirt tightly above the wound, hoping to slow the venom, but it wasn't enough. My leg felt heavy, swollen and hot to the touch, and the 2 small puncture marks where the snake had struck were now surrounded by angry red skin that pulsed with pain. I knew I was in trouble, but I had no idea just how bad it was going to get. I forced myself to keep moving, dragging my injured leg through the thick jungle. The ground was uneven, covered with roots, rocks and fallen leaves that tripped me at every turn. My breathing was shallow, and my heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. Sweat poured down my face, mixing with the tears I couldn't hold back. Every step was a battle, but stopping wasn't an option. If I stopped, I might never start again. The black mamba's venom was inside me, and I could feel it working, creeping through my veins like a silent killer. As I stumbled forward, the jungle seemed to close in around me. The trees were tall and dense, their branches weaving together overhead to block out most of the sunlight. The air was thick and humid, making it hard to breathe. The sounds of the jungle, which had once been so peaceful, now felt menacing. Birds screeched, monkeys chattered in the distance, and the rustle of leaves made me jump every few seconds. I kept imagining the black mamba was still out there, watching me, waiting to strike again. My mind raced with fear. What if there were more snakes? What if a jaguar, or some other predator smelled my blood and came for me? The thought made my stomach churn, and I nearly vomited. My vision started to blur, and my head felt light, like I might faint at any moment. I remembered reading somewhere that black mamba venom attacks the nervous system. It could cause paralysis, difficulty breathing, and even death within hours if you didn't get antivenom. Hours. How long had it been since the bite? I wasn't sure. Time felt strange, stretching out endlessly, while also racing by too fast. I glanced at my watch, but my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't read it. All I knew was that every second counted, and I was running out of them. I leaned against a tree to catch my breath, my chest heaving. The bark scratched my skin, but I barely noticed. The pain in my leg was so intense now that it drowned out everything else. I looked down and saw that the swelling had spread up my calf, making my leg look almost twice its normal size. The skin was turning a sickly purple, and the area around the bite was hot and tender. I touched it gently, and a sharp jolt of pain shot through me, making me cry out. Tears streamed down my face, but I wiped them away angrily. Crying wouldn't save me. I had to keep going. I pushed off from the tree and forced myself to take another step, then another. The jungle floor was a maze of obstacles, vines that tangled around my ankles, roots that tripped me, and sharp thorns that tore at my clothes and skin. My hands were scratched and bleeding from where I'd fallen earlier, but I barely felt it. All I could focus on was the fire in my leg and the growing fear that I might not make it out of here alive. I thought about my family back home, my mom, my dad, my little sister. They were probably wondering where I was, expecting me to walk through the door with stories of my adventure. The thought of never seeing them again made my chest ache even more than the venom. The heat and humidity were exhausting, and my body felt heavier with every step. My mouth was dry, and my throat burned from thirst, but I didn't dare stop to drink the water in my bag. I needed to keep moving, to find help before it was too late. But where was help? The jungle stretched on endlessly in every direction, a sea of green with no end in sight. There were no paths, no signs of human life, just trees, vines, and the occasional glimpse of a frightened animal darting away. I was completely alone, and that loneliness was almost as terrifying as the venom. As I struggled forward, my legs began to tremble, and my balance faltered. I tripped over a root and fell hard, landing on my hands and knees. The impact sent a fresh wave of pain through my leg, and I bit my lip to keep from screaming. For a moment I just lay there, face down in the dirt, too tired and hurt to move. The jungle was silent for a second, as if holding its breath, and then the sound started again, the chirping, the rustling, the distant roar of some unseen creature. I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to give up. What was the point? I was lost, injured and dying. No one knew where I was. No one was coming to save me. But then, a small voice inside me spoke up. It was faint, but it was there. You can't give up, it said. You have to fight. I thought about all the times I'd faced challenges before, school exams, broken bones, arguments with friends, and how I'd always found a way to keep going. This was different, of course. This was life or death, but the principle was the same. I had to keep fighting, no matter how hopeless it seemed. With a groan, I pushed myself up, my arms shaking with the effort. My leg throbbed, and my head spun, but I forced myself to stand. I wiped the dirt from my face and took a deep breath, ignoring the tightness in my chest. The jungle was still out there, still waiting to swallow me up, but I wouldn't let it. I would find a way out. I had to. I took another step, then another, each one a testament to my refusal to give in. The black mamba might have bitten me, but it wouldn't defeat me. Not yet. As I moved forward, the fear and pain mingled with a strange kind of determination. I didn't know if I'd survive, but I knew I wouldn't go down without a fight. The jungle was my enemy now, and I was ready to battle it with everything I had left. Little did I know, the worst was still to come, and the line between life and death was growing thinner with every step. The jungle seemed endless, a green prison that stretched on forever, trapping me in its depths. My leg throbbed with a pain that was now a constant companion, a burning reminder of the black mamba's bite. Hours had passed, or maybe it was minutes. Time had lost all meaning. My body was weak, my vision blurred, and my breathing was shallow, each breath a struggle against the venom coursing through my veins. But I kept moving, driven by a desperate need to survive. I couldn't stop. Stopping meant death, and I wasn't ready to give up yet. The jungle floor was a nightmare of obstacles. Vines snagged at my clothes, roots tripped me, and thorny bushes scratched my arms and face, leaving red welts that stung with every step. My hands were raw and bleeding from earlier falls, and my clothes were torn and dirty. Sweat mixed with dirt on my skin, and my mouth was so dry I could barely swallow. I had a bottle of water in my bag, but I was too afraid to stop and drink it. Every second I wasn't moving was a second closer to the venom winning. I had to keep going no matter how much my body screamed for rest. The heat was unbearable. The sun was high now, filtering through the dense canopy in thin golden rays that did little to light my way, but added to the oppressive humidity. My head spun, and black spots danced in front of my eyes. I leaned against a tree, gasping for air, my chest tight and my heart racing. Was this it? Was the venom finally taking over? I shook my head, trying to clear the fog. No, I told myself, I wasn't going to die here, not like this. I had to find help, had to make it out alive. Just as despair began to creep in, something caught my eye. Through the thick tangle of trees and vines, I saw a faint line in the dirt, a narrow path, worn down by animals or maybe other hikers. My heart leaped. A trail. If there was a trail, there might be people nearby, or at least a way out of this endless jungle. Hope flickered inside me, weak but persistent, like a candle in a storm. I forced myself to focus, squinting through the pain and exhaustion. Yes, it was definitely a path, winding off into the distance, disappearing around a bend. With renewed energy, I stumbled toward it, my leg dragging behind me, like a dead weight. The path was narrow and overgrown, but it was something, a sign of life, a chance. I followed it, my steps uneven and slow, but each one filled with a desperate kind of hope. The jungle still felt hostile, its sounds and shadows threatening, but now there was a goal, a direction. I wasn't just wandering aimlessly anymore. This trail could lead to safety, to people who could help me. As I walked, my mind raced with possibilities. Maybe the trail led to a village, or a ranger station, or even just a road where someone might drive by. I imagined a doctor injecting me with antivenom, nurses rushing around, my family waiting anxiously outside. The thought gave me strength, and I pushed harder, ignoring the fire in my leg and the dizziness in my head. But the trail wasn't easy to follow. It twisted and turned, sometimes disappearing under thick brush or crossing over rocky patches, where I had to crawl on my hands and knees. Each movement was agony, but I couldn't stop, I wouldn't stop. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows that made the jungle feel even more eerie. The birds were quieter now, and the insects buzzed louder, their noise filling the air like a warning. My stomach growled, but I ignored it. Food didn't matter, survival did. I thought about the hunters or villagers who might have made this trail. Were they close? Would they find me before it was too late? My leg was swelling more, the skin now a deep purple, and my fingers tingled, a sign that the venom was still spreading. My breathing was getting harder, each inhale a struggle against a tightening chest. I tripped again, falling hard onto the path, my hands scraping against the dirt. For a moment, I lay there, too exhausted to move. The jungle was silent, except for the pounding of my own heart. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I let them fall, hot and bitter. Why had I come here alone? Why hadn't I been more careful? The weight of my mistakes crushed me, but then I remembered the trail. It was still there, still my only hope. With a groan I pushed myself up, my arms trembling with the effort. I couldn't give up. Not now, not when I was so close. The path led me to a small clearing, and there, sparkling in the fading light, was a river. Its water was clear and cool, reflecting the last rays of the sun. I collapsed on the bank, my body giving out at last. The sight of the river was both a relief and a torment. I was so thirsty, but I didn't have the strength to reach for my water bottle. I lay there, staring at the water, my chest heaving. The river meant life, but it also meant I wasn't out of danger yet. I needed more than water, I needed help. Just as I thought I couldn't go on, I heard something, a sound that wasn't part of the jungle's usual chorus. It was faint, almost lost in the rustling leaves, but it was there, a voice, human. My heart skipped a beat. Was I imagining it? No, there it was again, clearer this time, coming from the other side of the river. I strained to listen, my ears buzzing with hope and fear. It was a man's voice, deep and steady, calling out to someone, hunters, maybe, or villagers. I didn't care who they were. They were people, and people meant help. With the last of my strength, I opened my mouth and screamed. My voice was weak and hoarse, but I screamed again, louder, pouring all my fear and desperation into it. Help, please help me. The words echoed through the jungle, and for a moment, there was silence. Had they heard me? Were they coming? I waited, my heart pounding, my body trembling. Then through the trees on the other side of the river, I saw movement, 2 figures, their shapes blurred by distance, and my failing vision. They stopped, staring in my direction, and I waved my arms wildly, shouting again. They saw me. I could tell by the way they reacted, their bodies tensing, their heads turning toward me. One of them shouted something back, but I couldn't make out the words. They started moving, rushing toward the river, their faces full of shock and concern. Relief flooded through me, but it was mixed with fear. Would they reach me in time? Could they save me from the venom that was slowly killing me? I didn't know, but for the first time since the bite, I felt a spark of real hope. Help was close, I just had to hold on a little longer. As the men approached, I felt my strength fading, my vision darkening at the edges. I fought to stay conscious, to keep my eyes on them. They were my only chance, my lifeline in this nightmare. The jungle had tested me, nearly broken me, but now, at last, there was a glimmer of salvation. I prayed it wasn't too late. The river sparkled in front of me, its cool, clear water a cruel temptation as I lay on the bank, my body broken and exhausted. The black mamba's venom had taken its toll, and every part of me ached. My leg throbbed with a relentless fire, my chest felt tight, and my head spun with dizziness. I could barely move, my arms and legs trembling from the effort of just staying upright. But then I heard it again, that faint, human voice from across the river. It was my lifeline, my only chance at survival, and I clung to it with every ounce of strength I had left. I forced myself to sit up, my vision blurring as black spots danced in front of my eyes. The two figures I'd seen earlier were still there, their shapes moving quickly through the trees on the other side of the river. Hunters, I thought, or maybe villagers. It didn't matter who they were, only that they were human, and they might be able to save me. My throat was dry and raw, but I gathered all the air I could and screamed again, my voice cracking with desperation. "Help, please, help me." The words echoed through the jungle, bouncing off the trees and fading into the distance. For a moment there was silence, and my heart sank. Had they heard me? Were they coming? Then I saw them react. One of the men pointed in my direction, and they both started running toward the riverbank, their faces filled with alarm. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly followed by a wave of fear. Would they reach me in time? The venom was still inside me, spreading, making my body weaker by the minute. My leg was now so swollen that it barely looked like part of me anymore. The skin was purple and tight, and the pain was almost unbearable. I could feel my fingers tingling, my breathing growing shallower, and I knew I didn't have much time. The men reached the edge of the river and stopped, staring across at me. They were dressed in simple clothes, their faces weathered and serious, and they carried rifles slung over their shoulders. Hunters, I decided. They shouted something, but their words were lost in the rush of the water and the buzzing in my ears. I tried to respond, to explain about the snake bite, but my tongue felt heavy, and my words came out slurred and unintelligible. "Snake, black mamba, help," I managed to croak, waving my arms weakly. One of the men, taller and older, gestured for the other to stay put while he waded into the river. The water was shallow but fast, and he moved carefully, his boots splashing as he crossed. I watched him, my heart pounding, every second feeling like an eternity. When he reached my side, he knelt beside me, his eyes wide with concern. Up close, I could see the lines on his face, the worry in his dark eyes. He spoke rapidly, in a language I didn't understand, but his tone was urgent, and his hands were gentle as he checked my leg. The sight of the bite made him curse under his breath. He looked up at me, his expression grave, and I knew he understood the danger. "Black Mamba," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He nodded, his jaw tightening, and shouted something to his companion across the river. The other man nodded and ran off, disappearing into the trees. I wanted to ask where he was going, but I was too weak to form the words. My vision was fading, the edges darkening, and I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. The hunter who stayed with me didn't waste time. He tore off his jacket and used it to prop up my head, then checked my pulse with rough but careful hands. His touch was steady, and his presence calmed me a little, but the fear was still there, gnawing at me. What if the other man didn't come back? What if they couldn't get me help in time? I thought about the stories I'd heard of black mamba victims, how some died within hours, their bodies shutting down as the venom paralyzed them. Was that going to happen to me? I clenched my fists, fighting the panic, but it was hard to stay strong when death felt so close. The hunter spoke to me again, his voice low and reassuring, though I couldn't understand the words. He pulled out a small knife and cut away the fabric around my leg to get a better look at the bite. The pain was excruciating, and I cried out, tears streaming down my face. He murmured something that sounded like an apology, and then wrapped a tighter bandage around my leg, above the bite, to slow the venom further. It hurt so much I thought I might pass out, but I bit my lip and endured it. I had to. This was my only chance. Time seemed to stretch and bend as I lay there, the hunter watching over me. The jungle was quiet now, the usual sounds, muffled by the rushing of the river, and the pounding of my own heartbeat. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to gather my strength, but when I opened them, the world was spinning. The hunter's face loomed above me, his expression tense, and I realized I was slipping away. "Stay with me," he said in broken English, his voice cutting through the fog. I nodded weakly, clinging to his words like a lifeline. Just when I thought I couldn't hold on any longer, I heard footsteps crashing through the underbrush. The second hunter was back, and he wasn't alone. Behind him were two more men, carrying a stretcher made of branches and vines. They moved quickly, their faces grim but determined. The first hunter shouted instructions, and together they lifted me onto the stretcher, their hands steady despite the urgency. I groaned as they moved me, the pain in my leg shooting through my entire body, but I was too weak to protest. They carried me away from the river, back into the jungle, their pace fast but careful. I could hear them talking, their voices urgent, but I couldn't make out the words. My head lolled to the side, and I caught glimpses of the jungle flashing by, trees, vines, shadows. The world was fading in and out, and I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or awake. Was this rescue real, or was my mind playing tricks on me? I wanted to believe it was real, but the darkness was pulling at me, threatening to drag me under. The men didn't stop, their breathing heavy as they navigated the rough terrain. I felt every bump, every jolt, each one, sending waves of pain through me. But I didn't care. They were taking me somewhere with help, somewhere with hope. I clung to that thought, letting it anchor me, as the jungle blurred around me. The black mamba had nearly killed me, but these strangers, these angels in the wilderness, were fighting to save me. I just had to hold on a little longer, to stay alive long enough for them to get me to safety. As they carried me deeper into the jungle, I felt a strange mix of fear and gratitude. Fear that I might not make it, that the venom would win before we reached help. Gratitude that these men had found me, that they were risking so much to save a stranger. The jungle had tested me, pushed me to the brink, but now, in this final test, I wasn't alone anymore. I closed my eyes, praying silently, my body trembling with the effort to stay conscious. The fight wasn't over yet, but for the first time, I dared to believe I might survive. The jungle blurred around me, as the hunters carried me on the makeshift stretcher, their footsteps pounding against the earth. My body felt like it was made of lead, every muscle screaming in pain, every breath a battle against the black mamba's venom that still coursed through my veins. My leg was a throbbing mass of fire and swelling, the skin now a deep angry purple, and my vision kept fading in and out, the world slipping away only to rush back in dizzying waves. I wasn't sure if I was alive or dreaming, but the men's voices kept me anchored, their urgent shouts cutting through the fog in my mind. "Hold on," one of them said in broken English, his voice rough but kind. I tried to nod, to show I was still fighting, but my head felt too heavy, and my body wouldn't obey. The stretcher jolted as they navigated the uneven ground, each bump sending a fresh wave of agony through me. I clenched my teeth, biting back a scream, tears streaming down my face. I was so close to giving up, but something deep inside refused to let go. I thought of my family, my mom's warm smile, my dad's steady voice, my little sister's laughter. I couldn't leave them. I had to live. The hunters moved quickly, their breathing heavy and labored, but they didn't stop. The jungle was still dense, its shadows stretching long in the fading light, but now there was a sense of purpose in their steps. They were taking me somewhere, and I clung to that hope like a lifeline. The taller hunter, the one who had first reached me by the river, kept checking on me. His eyes filled with worry. "Almost there," he said, though I wasn't sure if he was talking to me or to himself. I wanted to believe him, but the darkness was pulling at me, threatening to drag me under. After what felt like hours, but might have been only minutes, I heard a new sound, a distant rumble, like an engine. My heart leaped. Was it a vehicle? A helicopter? The hunters shouted to each other, their voices excited, and they picked up speed. The stretcher bounced harder, and I groaned, the pain almost too much to bear, but I didn't care. If they were taking me to help, I could endure anything. The jungle began to thin out, the trees giving way to a small clearing, and there in the middle of it was a helicopter, its blades spinning, kicking up dust and leaves. Relief flooded through me, but it was mixed with fear. Would they get me to the hospital in time? The venom had been in my system for hours now, and I could feel its effects growing stronger. My fingers were numb, my breathing was shallow, and my chest felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. The hunters shouted to the people near the helicopter, and suddenly there were more hands, more voices, all speaking quickly in a language I didn't understand, but knew was filled with urgency. They lifted me from the stretcher, and onto another smoother surface, a gurney I realized, and strapped me in. A man in a uniform leaned over me, his face serious but calm. "You're going to be okay," he said in clear English, his voice steady. I wanted to believe him, but I was so weak, so scared. They wheeled me toward the helicopter, the blades roaring above, and I felt the ground drop away as we lifted off. The jungle shrank below, a green blur of terror and survival, and I closed my eyes, letting the noise and motion wash over me. In the helicopter, the medical team worked fast. They hooked me up to machines that beeped and whirred, and someone injected something into my arm. Antivenom, the man said, noticing my wide, frightened eyes. It will help. I felt a brief sting, then a strange warmth spreading through me, but the pain in my leg didn't go away. My vision darkened again, and I thought I might die right there, in the air, surrounded by strangers. But the team kept talking, their voices calm and professional, and I clung to their words, letting them pull me back from the edge. When I woke up, the world was bright and sterile, not green and wild like the jungle. I was in a hospital room, the walls white, the air cool and clean. Machines beeped softly beside me, and a nurse in a blue uniform was adjusting something near my bed. For a moment I thought I was dead, but then the pain in my leg reminded me I was very much alive. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and sore, and all that came out was a croak. The nurse turned, her face lighting up with relief. "You're awake," she said, her voice warm. She hurried to my side and helped me sip water from a cup, the cool liquid soothing my parched throat. "You're very lucky," she continued. "The hunters found you just in time. The venom almost killed you, but the antivenom worked. You're going to be okay." Tears filled my eyes, and I let them fall, not caring who saw. I was alive. After all the fear, the pain, the loneliness in the jungle, I was alive. The doctors came in later, explaining that I'd been in a coma for 2 days, my body fighting off the last of the venom. They told me the swelling in my leg was going down, though it would take time to heal, and I might have some permanent scars, but none of that mattered. I was here, breathing, thinking, feeling. I thought about the hunters who had saved me, those strangers who risked their lives to carry me out of the jungle. I wanted to thank them, to tell them how much their bravery meant to me, but for now, I could only lie there, overwhelmed by gratitude and relief. The jungle had nearly claimed me, but I had fought back, and now I had a second chance. Days turned into weeks, and I slowly recovered. The hospital became a place of healing, not fear, and the nightmares of the jungle began to fade, replaced by memories of hope and survival. My family came to see me, their faces filled with tears and smiles, and I realized how much I had to live for. The black mamba bite had changed me, but it hadn't broken me. It had shown me how strong I could be, how much I wanted to live. When I finally left the hospital, walking with a limp but alive, I looked back at the jungle in the distance. It was still wild, still dangerous, but it no longer terrified me. I had faced its worst, and I had survived. Every day now felt like a gift, a precious moment I would never take for granted again. The fight to stay alive had been the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it had also been the most important. I was no longer just a hiker lost in the jungle. I was a survivor, and I would carry that strength with me forever.